Okay, welcome back for another week in our lab. We're going to talk about some more grammar here. Last week we were talking about sentence fragments. It's very important to make sure that you complete your thoughts so that everything makes sense for your reader. But you also need to make sure that you don't string too many ideas together at once. You have to strike an appropriate balance or your reader's going to become confused. So this week we're going to talk about run-on sentences. It's very important to understand these. Just like I told you last week, that topic, sentence fragments, is especially important for you to understand. You also need to understand how to not write run-on sentences. This is a very serious mistake that can really confuse a reader if you're not careful. So let's talk about some of the basic types, of run-on sentences that there are out there. Okay. Now there are essentially two different types of run-on sentences, the first of which is the fused sentence. A fused sentence is one in which a writer just strings together two complete sentences without putting any punctuation in between them. Or they at least are stringing a complete sentence which is an independent clause, and a dependent or an independent clause along with it. So they're just cramming everything in there together without any punctuation. So if I were to write a sentence like, this, I'm teaching you, I hope you're learning. That is a fused sentence. I hope that you can see that right here I've already got a complete sentence right there, and then I also have a complete sentence right here. Since there's no punctuation to separate these, and by the way, it needs to be a period. I can't just throw a comma right there and fix things. Only periods truly break off sentences. I'm going to have a run-on, and it's going to be, which is a fused sentence is a type of run-on. So right here I want to emphasize, just like we talked about last week, you got to know subject, verb, object. Here is the subject, I. What am I doing? I'm teaching. There's my verb, so I've got subject, verb, and then there's you. You're the one receiving the action, so that's the object. Nice, beautiful, complete sentence right there. Perfect. Same concept right here. We got my subject, we got my verb, everything's going perfectly smoothly. All I need to do to fix this problem is go over here and put that period in there. Sentences don't have to be long and wordy. I think that's a misconception that a lot of students have, is that you need to write really long sentences and use big words to do a good job. Actually, in many ways, it's just the opposite. You want to communicate as much with as few words as possible. Be an efficient communicator. So in many places, a short sentence can do a perfectly fine job. So this is just an example of what a fused sentence looks like. Let's talk about the other type of run-on sentence, though. Equally evil. The comma splice. A comma splice is where you take a sentence and you basically do the same thing that you're doing with a fused sentence, except you put a comma in its place. So if I go back to that same example again, I see this used as a so-called solution all the time. It says, I'm teaching you, comma, I hope you're learning. That does not break a sentence apart. It's still a run-on. If you're just using a comma to break two sentences apart, you're not breaking the sentences apart. They are still connected. So don't do this either, or you're going to create a comma splice. The only way to fix fused sentences and comma splices is to either, one, put a period in between those sentences and split them up, or use a comma and a coordinating conjunction like and, but, etc. So right here, you've got, I'm teaching you, and I hope you're learning. So right there, I've got my comma and a coordinating conjunction. That's one way that you can tie multiple sentences together. So it's up to you, comma and coordinating conjunction, or period. You decide. What I'd like you to do now, I know that you've got to do some grammar work in terms of our labs to complete the tasks, just to test your knowledge of this basic concept. But what I really want to see you do to make sure that you truly understand this is to apply it to your own writing. Whatever you're working on right now, outside the classroom or even for class, whatever it may be, I want you to look and see where you might have any run-on sentences. This is a very common mistake, and it's very confusing to the reader. So make sure you're checking out whatever it is you're writing for run-on sentences and fixing them.